5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark, welcome back to the Wealthy Wealthy podcast.
Oh, thanks, Krisstina. It's my honor, my pleasure. I'm so glad to be back.
Great. Well, this is a little different. I usually don't invite people back. It's an invitation to come share who you are and your expertise with my audience. But I wanted to bring you back because you're in the money business and the financial industry, and we're in the middle of this COVID virus crisis, if we're calling it that, which has automatically impacted the economy, our business economics, our personal economics in one way or another. So I wanted to talk with you and have everybody listen in just to drill in a little bit into your unique point of view. So again, if anybody didn't hear you the first time, just share who you are, what your business is, and kind of really where you're sitting right now with how you're seeing things. I'd like to see through the eyes of Mark Willis.
Okay. Well, you're going to need some thick glasses, I guess, then. I'm a certified financial planner. I own a firm here in Chicago, Illinois. We work with several hundred clients all across the United States. Our focus and our passion is to help people find sane and safe financial strategies that help them take the necessary risks that we need to in life, but not the unnecessary risks. Our focus is on helping build and grow and protect people's money in any economy. We do focus quite a bit on small business owners and folks that are just trying to make it and start a brand new venture or adventure in their life. Because, honestly, it's sort of my own journey too. We're building a business here. We've had a lot of fun the last 10 years, and we're watching things really grow and succeed. And, to be honest, these days, in this moment, and as of our recording, it's late April 2020, feels a lot like the first days of our business and the days just leading up to starting my business, which was, the last financial crisis. And so there's a lot of eerie echoes and similarities, and of course some very significant differences in the world today. But that's a bit about me and our financial firm here in Chicago and what we're trying to do. Our focus is helping people break free from financial insanity and take steps toward financial wellness, which is why I think maybe we work so well together, Krisstina.
Yeah, we do. And that's honestly, in full disclosure, I'm always a little, I don't know, with people that have the CFP behind their name. It's such a conventional financial certification that's really in that old box type training and mentality. So whenever I have a CFP on, I'm kind of waiting for that traditional, conventional side of things that I don't really resonate with and I don't recommend myself. So you surprised the hell out of me when I realized, oh my gosh, we have the same philosophy and you look at money the same way I do, and we really recommend and advise the same way. You're just smarter than I am because you're able to get that CFP thing. So
I don't know about that.
Maybe anyway.
I don't know how smart you can be to put yourself through 3 years of grueling test work and math and all the details. It's certainly not an easy credential to get, but honestly, folks are honestly told that they can't get money straight. They can't figure it out. That's what they're told by the so-average financial industry, as I call them. And I just don't agree. I think we innately figure out from day one what money is and how it works. Krisstina, if I may, can I tell a very quick story?
By all means, please. Okay.
So one of my first memories of money as a child was packing money into a little paper bag. Literally like the allowance money and the work around the house money. And as a little kid, I had this little paper bag, and I built up enough in that paper bag to have $50. Believe it or not, that I guess I had more of a net worth at that age than I did leaving college, which is another story, I think. But so I had $50, and my mom took me to a bank down the street. And the goal was to open up a checking account and start that whole process. But then came the time, Krisstina, to hand over that paper bag. And when I gave it to that banker, I did give it to him. But the whole time I'm thinking, I don't know if I can trust that banker. And how safe is this bank anyway to keep my $50 that I've worked so hard for? little did I know how right I was as whatever I was, 5, 6 years old at the time, that security of that bank was less than the paper bag where I kept my cash. And no more true has it been made clear since the financial crisis, and even worse with the Dodd-Frank reforms, and now with the financial and health crisis we're in today. I don't know if I'd officially go this far, but I might say your paper bag might be safer than the local bank down the street. And
thank you. Let's talk into this a little bit. So, do you have any statistics ready at hand as far as, let's just look at the economy a little bit. This is just factual conversation. There's no emotion one way or another built in, and neither optimism or pessimism or fear or abundance. It's just a matter of, talk some numbers to me. What's happening in the marketplace right now?
Okay, sure. Yeah, there's no bad news. There's no good news. I believe that very firmly. There's just news. And what you read it as and how you interpret it might either be bad news or good news, depending on your situation and how you view things. But let me sort of paint the picture a little bit in terms of just the numbers. As far as total amount of debt owed in the United States, we're up to 13.8 trillion consumer debt owed. That's not including government debt. That would include 434 billion of credit cards, 9.4 trillion in mortgages, and the average household has $136,000 of U.S. household debt as of late 2018, beginning of 2019. So that's some statistics. On the other side of things, 10,000 baby boomers retire every single day. So that means since this financial and health crisis began in mid-March, we've had almost 650,000 baby boomers reach age 65. Now, what happens when you retire and turn age 65? Typically, if you've been able to save anything in the stock market, you're going to start removing money out of the market and start to spend it as grocery money in retirement. So add to that the overall pressure of the stock market's tumble, and we're looking at over 500,000, 650,000 boomers who thought they could retire in May, back in Valentine's Day, and now they're maybe not so sure, and maybe they have to keep working into their late 60s and early 70s. Those are some statistics. One more, as of late 2019, stock buybacks were the largest source of stock market purchasing of any other source in the world. So what are stock buybacks? Those are corporations who had nothing better to do with their money than to buy their own stock. That means they didn't invest in new, smartphone gadgetry. They didn't, help market their brand. They didn't pay down their own debt. They didn't put away for a rainy day. They were certainly the largest purchaser of the stocks that we all saw growing as of late 2019. And now that, folks aren't buying their smartphones and they're not, spending the money that they would have on that cruise, that's all cash that the stock market won't have from the stock buybacks that won't be happening in 2020. So we're looking at a number of headwinds coming at us as the stock market collapses and then rebounds and then collapses again. And we're finding on the family level, there's, like I said, $136,000 on the average. And if you're less than that, then that means someone else is worse than that, right? So there's really a number of headwinds coming at us. And again, there's no bad news. There's no good news. There's just news. And we can talk as we go through this today, Krisstina, how this might be especially good news, as bad as it might sound for some folks. But those are some small and I guess relevant facts for our conversation today.
And how does the unemployment number impact? Like where does that fit in the mix as far as the potential headwind?
Sure. Yeah. Well, once again, we've just seen in 5 weeks the weekly unemployment claims reach 27 million people. The most analysts, including Goldman Sachs, is saying that we'll see unemployment reach 32 to 35%. Krisstina, just to give you some context, the worst part of the Great Recession, we only saw 1/3 that bad. We were at 10.1% as the worst parts of the Great Recession were taking hold. So this would be something worse than the Great Depression in terms of unemployment. Now, that's almost hard to imagine. So even if Goldman Sachs is only half right, we're still going to be 150% as bad as we were in the Great Recession. So that shouldn't matter. When we all lose our jobs, it's not bad news or good news. It's just news. So what do we do when we lose our jobs? Well, we've got some options, right? We can either find a new one if they're willing to give us a new job. We can take the entrepreneurial route, or we can sit back and live on our emergency funds if we have any. So that's some of the details around unemployment right now, Krisstina.
And what about, do you have any statistics for the amount of emergency fund, like how many months that the average household has available?
Yeah, there's a recent study that was done for the average American. Almost 50% of Americans have less than $400 in their savings account. If they have an emergency of something over $400, according to the Federal Reserve, 50% of us would have to sell something or go into debt to cover that expense. So once again, most Americans, almost half of Americans, have access to a qualified retirement plan like a 401k. And the options are, hey, we'll either sell something, go into debt, or we'll have to tap our other assets like our 401ks, our house. And so it's sort of like we didn't really have a rainy day fund. If you don't have $400 laying around, you can't weather this storm. We've reached a torrential downpour, and we couldn't have handled a financial drizzle, as it were. And so we really weren't preparing ourselves for this. Debt actually was growing as we entered into January of 2020, and when we ran into this headwind of the coronavirus, it just wasn't. We just weren't ready. We weren't prepared, either as individuals, families, or the nation.
Yeah, and I'm just I don't really want to go off on a bunny trail here, but we'll do a short one. I'm just curious from your point of view. We're both in the money business. I'm more on the education side. You're more in the placement side, like helping people place their money. I educate them in things that you believe in, and then you place those assets or place that money in places that I recommend, for example, because we're in alignment. Anyway, you and I, even though we approach it from different places, is the way we do it for a living, we're both harping all the time, like cash, 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 emergency fund, live below your means, pay off your debt, like be ready. The market's probably going to shift. We've been in bubble for a long time, like prepare. If it doesn't happen, great, you're in good shape. But if it does, you're not going to like sync with maybe a lot of other businesses or families. So I'm just curious, and I just know for me, like, God bless. I mean, it's just such hard work to try to convince people to learn about their money and do some things and act a certain way. And I just, every day I'm like, why is it so hard to sell people that they need to learn how to get good with their money, so if the market shifts, they don't crater.
Right.
And I know so you get that from a different, like from your side, but what is your reason for that? Like, what is the psychology, or what is the reasoning, or what is this where I just think this type of mindset and behavior is going to cause a lot of destruction and financial despair and real crisis for that. And I'm just, again, a little side bunny trail, but I'm trying to understand the why, because I cannot wrap my head around it.
Well, I'll give you an acronym for fun here, because I've thought a lot about this too, Krisstina. And while I don't have a permanent answer, I do know there's some good brain science to what we'll talk about here for a minute in our bunny trail. So BEAR, bear. That's why the rich go broke. That's why we all stay broke if we are. And there's a way out, which we can talk about too if you want. But it starts with beliefs. What are our beliefs? Who taught us to believe what we now believe? Beliefs like that money is the root of all evil. That's a belief. Only rich people, all rich people are bad. That's another belief. I'll never make it. These are all beliefs. You might be able to come up with a few more that you've heard. Krisstina, any other ones that you've heard rattle around in conversations?
oh, well, that's too expensive, or what does it matter anyway? We're always in debt, so it doesn't, doesn't matter. Money
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Or,
better to live rich than die rich. That's one I hear. The idea of just spending it all. Let's
you
spend it.
only live
It's
once.
you only live once. There you go. Yeah, yeah. Or I just have my spouse take care of the money. I can't handle. I'm not good with math. I'm not good with numbers.
That's a good one.
All these are just beliefs, right? So you go from beliefs to excuses. We make excuses for the beliefs, and those lead to actions, which lead to our disastrous. The letter R is results. So we're stuck in a bear trap, which even those that win the lottery, 7 out of 10 lottery winners will file bankruptcy within 5 years of winning the lottery. So I do think there's a way out. I think that you can create new habits, create new beliefs about money, but it really starts with making a decision that you're fed up with being abused by a system that's certainly not putting you at the top of the heap.
Yeah, well said. And I love that bear. Funny enough, I've never heard that before. So I'm going to borrow that one with your
All
permission.
right, sure, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. All right, so let's circle back now that we're out of our bunny a little bit. What are you seeing from just the mood, what people are feeling right now, your actual clients? Is there fear, panic, opportunity, blend of the both?
Yeah, I'd say that there's a blend of both for sure. Again, there's only news. Some people have lost their jobs. We have over 600 clients, so you got to believe some people are going to be hit harder than others in their space. So the folks that lost their jobs were, thankfully we set up accounts and they have plenty of cash to sit on and wait or find a new job or start that micro business they've been always wanting to start. I mean, one of the key questions I like to ask our clients is, who do you want to be after this crisis is over? Who do you want to be after this crisis is over? In fact, you can start being that person right now. I was thinking earlier today, just as I was getting ready for the day and getting ready for this episode, we'd like to think of ourselves as a certain type of person when we're not in a crisis. But honestly, it's who we are in the midst of the crisis that truly reveals our characteristics and our personality. So who do you want to be right now? And who do you want to be way after this crisis is over? Maybe now's the time. With all the gift of time we've been given, we might have lost our jobs. We might not have the gift of money, but we might now have the gift of time. So what are you going to do with this precious asset? Maybe it's more walks in the woods. Maybe it's a long conversation with your spouse every day. Maybe it's finally getting in shape. Maybe it's finally sitting down and starting that side business that you want to take over and leave your day job someday. So, it's a matter of what are we going to do with the asset we've been given, this asset of time. Those that are in really well-positioned spots and are ready to take market share, there's a lot of opportunity right now. Again, it's the people who were sitting on cash, waiting for just such an occasion. They certainly didn't see the future, Krisstina. None of us would have known. We'd all be wearing masks when the year started, but we didn't know what the pin was, but we saw the bubble, and bubbles seem to float toward pins, don't you know? So the idea is, where are we going to put that cash? Where are we going to have that money allocated so that we can have the best outcomes, the best opportunity to increase our market share, become more competitive in our business? Maybe, for example, having let's say you ran a restaurant. The poor restaurant owners down the street, maybe they couldn't keep up. They weren't prepared. They didn't have cash on hand. They had to go out of business. Well, they're selling their equipment, their oven, their other seating, whatever, and you're going to be able to pick that up if you have cash. So this more than anything else, I think, is a reminder that we all can be prepared. I guess the last thing I'll mention is, I'm talking with folks, and as we're speaking, I sit down and I say, well, hey, this has happened 3 times in the last 20 years. 3 major financial crises: the dot-com, the financial crisis of 2008, and now the health crisis of 2020. How many more major black swans is it going to take before we're ready to not participate in any more of them ever again?
I'm with you. And yeah, I'm, that's wishful, is that it's even looking at the silver lining piece is we can't change what already is, but we can change what can be. And if we can learn the lessons, I've been sharing a little bit. I wrote the piece that's the 10 things for every micro business owner do right now
Yeah.
to prepare to build financial immunity.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's the best you've got, whatever you have. But if you can think this way and take action, but I come from that is that this is my third one. The first one, I got my ass handed to me because I didn't know what a recession was. I was making money hand over fist. I thought it was going to last forever. I was young. I was naive. I thought it would just bounce right back. I had no history. The second one, it's like what you said. There's an echo here. I'm feeling it. So went fast into action, and especially for my industry that was really, I think, slow to move, and everybody was hiding their cars and things, businesses were just dropping like flies, and mine was able to sustain and grow. But it's because I learned a lot of lessons from all the bruises. Well, I just blew up the first time. And then it's getting to this one again, it's even noticing some signs. Been in a bubble for a long time. We don't know what the pin is, but the pin is coming. I like your metaphor there. And so it's just starting to prepare for that. Like, people would be asking me, are we in a, how's the real estate market or this? Like, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, but we've been in a bubble for a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to start hoarding cash and doing some different things just to play it safe. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully these things, will be okay. But that all comes from just been there twice before, and you notice the
Sure.
signs. And so you don't want to, I didn't want to lose everything again if I didn't have to, this
Sure.
might
Yeah.
last forever. I mean, even wherever we are, I don't have the resources that can last forever. I mean, there is a timeline, but so
Yeah.
we only
No.
have,
Yeah.
but we can only do what we can do.
That's right. And I'll be especially graceful to folks who were caught off guard here. I really think that it's not something that we're all taught. I think if you can make it through undergrad and graduate school, and even right up to maybe even right through the CFP, and not understand the power of the impact of some of the strategies that you teach, Krisstina, I think folks want to just bypass the CFP and learn what you're learning. These 10 things every micro business needs to do to prepare for whether it's COVID or any other financial crisis. I think folks will be well served. So, in fact, I was thinking more about it. I love the idea of being financially immune. And tell me, does this seem like this fits into to the same framework of the webinar that we'll be doing together, and also the course that you have? I'm thinking about how our money needs to be financially immune. I love that concept. And so here's kind of 3 things that I thought our money needs to do to protect itself from being infected. Because I do believe that we've been financially infected for a very long time, maybe 20 years, as you mentioned. This cyclical flu keeps coming back on our money every couple of years or so. In fact, I heard over the last 100 years, the Wall Street's index, the stock market will drop on average 14%, at least temporarily, every single year. And every 3 years, it drops on average 34%. So that feels a lot like a seasonal flu to me. So how do we prepare ourselves, protect ourselves, if that's going to keep happening? If someone robbed me every year or every 3 years, robbed my house, I'd find ways to protect my house, right? So here are 3 things that I thought of, and maybe you can add them as an appendix onto the Financially Immune course, but I love it. So here are my 3 things. 1, we need lots of liquids when we're sick, and your money needs lots of liquidity. We need lots of liquids when we're sick, and your money needs lots of liquidity. It keeps the money from being infected. When you've got liquid, meaning accessible cash. If all your money is tied up in your house, your business, or your 401k, God forbid, you really don't have a prayer. I mean, it took an act of Congress for us to finally get a gracious handout to be able to access our 401ks without an early withdrawal penalty, for example. So that's number 1. Number 2, we need a place to rest when we're sick, and your money needs a place to rest in between what it does all day long, right? So where's the right place for your money to rest? I don't want to be sleeping out on the street when I'm sick with the flu, and I certainly don't want my money on a certain street by the name of Wall in the middle of this crisis. Okay, so your money needs a good, decent place to rest. What if you had a place for your money to live, where it had a predictable growth pattern, grew uninterrupted in a tax-free way, guaranteed for the rest of your life? That'd be a pretty cool place for my money to rest. And then finally, your money needs lots of exercise. Just like you need exercise to help you feel better after getting sick, you need to put that money to work in ways that help grow your wealth. And I'd say one of the best things you can do is listen to Kristina's podcast and learn what she's teaching, because she's helping micro business owners take action so you can invest in yourself and invest in the best assets you can come across, which is your mind, your heart, and your willpower. And if you can start a business with some of that cash, don't just let it sit, soak, and sour in any account. I don't care if it's a cool bank on yourself type policy like we talk about, infinite banking. But the best place is to get it out of those assets and into the real world where you can do some tremendous good. So liquidity, place to rest, exercise. What do you think, Krisstina?
I love it. And I love the seasonal flu, like protect your money from being infected from the seasonal flu. Really good. Yeah. Love it. And I love the lots of liquidity. That's one of the 10 is cash. It's like right now, if we're protecting ourselves from the virus, we're really working on, part of that is we are stockpiling food, some water, some, whatever it is, so that if we, that we can last a while, if something happened, that we've got inventory, we have stock. Mm-hmm. And that's why no inventory, no stock of toilet paper or water, food, and grocery stores close, you have a real issue. And so the same thing, we need to stockpile cash. It's that cash is the inventory of food and water that is what needs to be inventoried right now to carry us through for however long this lasts. But I love the liquidity, rest, whole life insurance. That's a great place for our money to rest. And then exercise, absolutely perfect. Well done.
Cool. Well, hey, I'm just trying to keep up with you, Krisstina. It's an interesting metaphor, because I think you're right. I think we've been financially sick for way longer than this Q1 2020. We've been, as a nation, we've all been succumbed to the market's myth that it always goes up. Mm-hmm. I think that's a myth that needs to be shattered. For example, statistics say the stock market, and that's the S&P, usually they'll use the S&P 500 index, has averaged 10% over our lifetimes. However, the real return of investors, according to third-party research, is we are only doing about 3.8% over the last 20 years. If you're all in on an index fund, and that's before taxes, and that's before inflation, 3.88% after 20 years of this abuse, I'm ready to get off the roller coaster. So to me, I think we've been sick financially, not on the stock market only, but also on our personal consumer debt side. We've run up our credit limits. We're in debt up to our eyeballs, and I think we weren't ready for this. But this doesn't have to be a death sentence to us. If we're ready to make this our final recession, you can become your own PPP program for yourself, right? You can set up your own line of credit for yourself. You can be your own personal protection asset for yourself. You can do this. You can be your own personal protective equipment. It doesn't have to be, that we just keep being thrown around by the winds every time this happens.
And to your point, and for anybody listening, this isn't rocket science. It's very basic. It's just not common knowledge, because conventional markets don't talk about this, because they want you to put your money in controlled place, not your control, but government control and company controlled, index controlled markets. And so where there's, those regulations and stipulations. And so it's not in the best interest for us to know anything. And so we are kept in the dark for a reason in many cases. And so I think for me, when even people work with me, and I know when they work with you, they're like, really, is it this easy? Why don't I know this? Why have I never heard about this before? Why am I completely ignorant and oblivious that this even exists? Like, it's earth shattering in a way, like, whoa, who knew?
Yeah.
And so, and it's all just some education. It's just learning, and like you said, the bear breaking some
Yep.
beliefs. But a lot of the beliefs just comes. A lot of people believe the only place to invest is the stock market, and that's
Mhm.
and the only way to quote unquote retire is to do 401k and IRAs for 40 years or whatever the case is, and do a company match, assuming you could even get one. So when that's the only belief, and the people don't even, without the knowledge to know, oh, I believe there's a whole other category of things about money I didn't know about, then
Mhm.
that can go into, you remove some of the excuses maybe, and then we can take action. I just love your better acronym there.
Thanks.
But
Yeah.
just going like wherever anybody is listening right now, wherever it is, it's an opportunity to be like, maybe I haven't been paying attention to things historically, but now this has got my attention, so I can change behavior. And then to know we can only do with what we have to work with right now, but if we learn and take action, we can probably do a lot more. There's a lot more we can do than we know is possible by just paying attention to the dogma or the, NBC out there or whatever.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, one of the best practices I think folks might try here is sit down and in the midst of a crisis, it's easy. It's very easy to get focused on the right now. How am I going to keep my family safe today? How am I going to stay away from this virus today? How am I going to protect my retirement right now? How am I going to keep my business lights on today? But one of the thought exercises you might give a shot here is, again, think as long range as you can. Why don't you take a moment, even if it's just 15 minutes, and write down what your business will look like in 100 years. Just let the mind go way out there for a minute. What about your family? What kind of principles? What if you couldn't leave them any money at all? And all you could do is leave them a few principles or ideas or habits. What's 2 or 3 habits, ideas, principles, characteristics you want your family to have 100 years from now? Because you got to believe folks are going to be talking about the coronavirus of 2020 100 years from now. So again, who do you want to be when this is all over? And who do you want your family to be? Who do you want your business to be? What sort of principles or characteristics or ideas, actions do you want to take right now that'll start a ripple effect, start a chain reaction that'll last 100 years? There's a business that's actually it's been a small family-owned business since 600 AD, almost 1,300 years, owned by one family. It's a hotel chain in Japan. And I just think it's so cool. I don't know the guy or gal who started that family business 1,300 years ago, but I should hope that they were thinking that my business is going to last 1,000 years, 1,000+ years, Krisstina.
That's super
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, how many pandemics did they have to go through?
Yeah,
It's
no
just
doubt.
one more.
All right. Well, we're bumping up against our time together here. So what if people are asking you, hey, Mark, I've got some cash and I notice things are shifting. What do you recommend?
Yeah, yeah. The first thing I'd say is don't just listen for my advice or any other financial advisor's advice. I think a great first step is to sit down and listen to what Kristina's saying and learn and understand her methodology and her approach, your approach, Krisstina. One thing I'd say is don't start with end products. Don't start with labels. I heard it once said, I'd rather have Tiger Woods golf swing, not Tiger Woods clubs. So don't start with the clubs. Put aside savings accounts, 401ks, whole life insurance, annuities, stock market, real estate. Put it all aside for a minute and just say, what do I want my money to do for me? And ask yourself that question. Here's a few questions to get you started, but take it any way you want. For example, what sort of characteristics, attributes would you want your money to have? Would you want some sort of predictable competitive rate of return? Would you want some sort of predictable guarantee that that money was going to be there when you opened up the cookie jar to look for it again someday in the future? Would you want access, liquidity, as we've been talking about? Would you want some sort of liquidity there? Would you want it to be available to you at any time for any reason with no prohibited transactions? Would you want some sort of tax-free nature to this financial vehicle? Would you want any sort of restrictions on how much money you put into it Would you want, or, in other words, would you want it to be constricted by a government sort of income threshold or phase out rules, that sort of thing? Would you want, finally, I guess I'll mention, would you want it to be protected from lawsuits and creditors? Because that's a big, big, big deal if you're in the small business space. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Unfortunately, there's going to come a door knocking with being served papers. So you'd want some, I assume, if you're a business owner like myself, like ourselves, you'd want some sort of protection in your state for where that money is going to live so it doesn't get robbed in a courtroom. So those are a few things to get you going. Ask yourself a few more questions. What else do you want your money to do for you? Because where you put your money will make it do different things.
That's such a great answer. I love that. And something when I've been asked that question, that's a better answer than the answer I give. But what I've said is, for me, looking through the eyes of an investor, meaning buy low, for me, even being what I think I'm a pretty decent real estate investor, I don't know enough. It is crazy right now. It's going to be volatile as hell, in my opinion, for a while, because nobody knows when the lockdown's going to actually when things are going to open up, when the quarantine is going to change, when people don't feel they need to wear a mask, when we just don't know enough information. So right now it's just a guessing game. And if you're speculative and just think you're a great guesser, then by all means play. But I'm just not that smart, and I don't have the psychology for that. So, personally. But, again, I built a significant amount of my personal wealth in the last crash. But not the first 6 months or the first year, even the first 18 months probably, is really watching things and getting where I felt, okay, I think I have enough knowledge now. I think I can make some somewhat educated guesses, and, nobody can predict a low and nobody can predict a high, but I've got enough information now. I feel comfortable, but it certainly wasn't the first day or something. So anyway, that's some of what I've been saying is just be patient, watch, learn. Just learn, if you're watching real estate or watching Amazon stock or watching anything, have a daily thing. This is what it's doing, to see if you can see any trends or see anything going on, that there's something like, now I think my intuition and I have enough information, I can make a call on this, but it's an educated guess. It's not just a speculation of, everybody's saying buy Amazon stock. So
true. Yeah, I'd say there's sort of a class of people who are going to jump in right when they smell blood in the water, so to speak, or as soon as first sign of trouble. But you're right, it's that patient investor. It's interesting that Warren Buffett has sold millions of shares, and he's still sitting on a ton of cash right now. Not that he's always right, because he's not. But, that's interesting to sort of watch the sophisticated, long-time investors like him, who's been through a few of these, sitting patiently, waiting, watching, and then he'll find something, and you'll hear it in the news the day after it happens. So yeah, definitely great advice, Krisstina.
All right. Well, any final words? I know you've got to jump here at the top of the hour. So any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like the listeners to know, be aware of? Any parting advice?
Well, the best advice is check out the webinar we'll be doing. Krisstina, do you want to give it? I have the details here. You want me to read those out to our listeners?
I'm super excited about this. Again, I fully am in alignment with Mark's thinking, just thinking about money and how to invest it and what's important and the questions to ask. And so just that alignment of philosophical values, both business and personal. And so I really appreciate it about you. It's uncommon. And then, so I'm super excited to be able to be doing some work with you and to semi-partner up on a few things, because it's fun to take it. There's an alignment in business and personal values, and then just out of the COVID. This is a great thing, like out of the COVID, for example, is one of my 10 is called the silver lining. And it's in the community co-creation, that there's going to be so many new creations and inventions and relationships and businesses that come out of this that never would have happened before, or even just short time fun things to do together. So this with you is one of those, and I'm super excited about that. We're going to do a co-hosted event and see if we can help people. So yeah, share a little bit about it.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's set up for May 1st, Friday, May 1st at 1 p.m. Central. So that's 2 p.m. Eastern. And I think the topic is 10 things help me out. It's 10 things every micro business owner needs to do to prepare for the coronavirus. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one way. It's really to build financial immunity, to become as financially immune as possible during this time of crisis or economic shift or correction or whatever word we want to give it.
Yeah.
It's an action plan. We're going to talk about specific and sequential actions that anybody listening can take to be as immune as possible with what we have to work with.
That's fantastic. Yep, and I believe you have a link to that. At least I think you do, for folks that want to sign up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. We'll put it in the show notes, and we're going to be marketing it, make it easy to find. So I'm super excited because I think we're going to have a really fun conversation together.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, so I guess that would be one thing. And the other is you mentioned, sort of a not common way of thinking, but thinking alike. If folks want to learn more, you can check us out at Not Your Average Financial Podcast.
Awesome. All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you making time for me here to share with us your unique point of view.
Yeah, likewise. Keep up the great work and help us find wealth and wealth, both of those, in the midst of this brand new game we're all going to have to play for the foreseeable future.
Exactly. All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.